It started with a sound no one in that auditorium expected to hear. Bang! Then another, and another. On that August evening at Utah Valley University, the air was supposed to be filled with applause, not gunfire. But in a matter of seconds, panic erupted. Students and guests scrambled for cover as shots rang out, echoing off the walls. When the chaos settled, one man lay fatally wounded, conservative commentator and activist Charlie Kirk. The shooter, a 20-year-old student named Tyler Robinson. Witnesses described the scene as surreal, like something out of a movie. Some didn't realize what was happening until they saw blood. Others froze, staring in disbelief as Kirk's security detail rushed toward the stage. Within minutes, the auditorium was evacuated, and law enforcement swarmed the campus. But while officers were racing to secure the scene, Robinson was already on the move. He didn't vanish into the night, though. Instead, he left behind something investigators would later call one of the most chilling pieces of evidence in recent history: a handwritten note tucked under his computer keyboard. The note read, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act. This was deliberate, calculated, planned. And the fallout was immediate. News outlets across the country lit up with breaking banners. Charlie Kirk assassinated on campus. Social media exploded with shock, outrage, and speculation. Was this political? Was it personal? Was it a lone act or part of something bigger? Meanwhile, authorities launched a manhunt. For several tense hours, Utah residents were told to stay indoors. Patrol cars spread across neighborhoods, helicopters circled the skis, and detectives pieced together Robinson's movements after the shooting. It didn't take long. By the next morning, Tyler Robinson was in custody. He was booked into jail, facing charges that would include aggravated murder and later, obstruction of justice and witness tampering. But what shocked the public even more than the speed of his arrest was the story investigators began to unravel. Robinson hadn't just killed Charlie Kirk. He had written about it, talked about it, and in some ways confessed to it before anyone even knew his name. And that's where this case takes a darker turn. Because Robinson's words, the ones investigators recovered from his messages and his note, reveal not just what he did, but why he believed he had to do it. And once detectives opened his phone, they realized the shooting wasn't the only explosive piece of this story. When investigators cracked open Tyler Robinson's phone, they expected digital breadcrumbs. What they found was a confession, typed out in real time, as if Robinson was narrating his own crime. The messages were sent to his partner, someone he trusted enough to share his darkest thoughts with. One text read simply, I'm sorry." Those 3 words weren't just chilling, they were an admission, an acknowledgement that yes, he was the one who pulled the trigger that ended Charlie Kirk's life. But Robinson didn't stop there. In another message, he wrote, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out." It was more than an explanation. It was a manifesto condensed into a single sentence, an ideological motive written in his own hand. To prosecutors, it was the smoking gun that proved Robinson wasn't acting in confusion or panic. He believed he was carrying out a mission. And investigators soon learned he had been planning it. The note under his keyboard was the first clue, but then came evidence that Robinson had been preparing for more than a week. He had scoped the venue. He had the rifle ready. He even asked his partner to delete their conversations, to stay quiet, to keep law enforcement at bay. This wasn't just a crime, it was a plot. Digital forensics revealed more. Searches on Robinson's laptop, traces of activity in Discord servers, private logs where he vented frustration and hinted at violent thoughts. Every file, every keystroke painted the same picture: a young man who had convinced himself that killing Charlie Kirk was not only possible, but necessary. And yet, for all the evidence Robinson tried to erase, his trail was everywhere. Surveillance cameras captured him entering and leaving the auditorium. DNA linked him to the weapon. Witnesses placed him at the scene without question. By the time prosecutors presented the picture in court filings, it was damning. A note of intent, a digital confession, a suspect caught red-handed with a weapon in his hand. But the strangest part wasn't the evidence itself. It was the tone of Robinson's words. He didn't sound triumphant. He didn't sound enraged. He sounded resigned, like someone carrying out a decision they had already accepted, no matter the cost. So what drove him there? What belief, what emotion, what spiral led a college student to transform into a confessed killer? That's the riddle prosecutors are determined to solve. And as the legal battle begins, the defense is already hinting at their counter. This wasn't cold calculation, they say, but a troubled mind unraveling. And that's where Section 3 picks up, because the courtroom isn't just about proving guilt. It's about shaping the story that decides life or death. And Robinson's new legal team is preparing for the fight of his life. When Tyler Robinson stepped into the courtroom weeks after the shooting, the headlines flared up again. Cameras captured him in a suicide prevention vest, surrounded by deputies, as prosecutors laid out their intentions. They were pursuing the death penalty. But even before the trial begins, the legal battle is already turning into a chess match. At a recent hearing, Robinson's defense team asked for more time. Why? Because the state has handed them what they called a voluminous amount of evidence, gigabytes of digital data, witness testimony, forensic reports, surveillance footage. It's not just overwhelming, it's strategic. The prosecution is burying the defense under a mountain of material, daring them to find a way out. And Robinson's attorneys, they're not backing down. His lead attorney, Catherine Nestor, is a seasoned defense lawyer with experience in high-profile capital cases. She's now joined by additional attorneys admitted pro hac vice, a legal term meaning they've been temporarily allowed to practice in Utah just to defend Robinson. That kind of move tells you one thing. This case is being built as a national-level fight, not just a local trial. The defense has also begun shaping its narrative. While prosecutors highlight the note, the texts, and the weapon, Robinson's lawyers are hinting at a different story: mental health. The suicide prevention vest, the disturbing tone of his messages, his apparent spiral in the days before the shooting. All of these details may become part of a strategy to argue that Robinson wasn't acting with cold, calculated intent, but with a fractured state of mind. And then there's Erica Kirk, Charlie's widow. In a move that shows just how tense this case is becoming, the court issued a protective order barring Robinson from contacting her. To the prosecution, that's a measure of safety. To the defense, it could be another layer of public perception painting their client as a looming threat, even behind bars. Every filing, every motion, every ruling in this case feels like a piece of a larger puzzle. Prosecutors are building a picture of a ruthless political assassination. The defense is quietly sketching an image of a troubled young man unraveling under pressure. And the jury, once this case reaches trial, will have to decide which picture they believe. For now, the public watches from the sidelines as both sides prepare. And with the death penalty on the table, the stakes couldn't be higher. But beyond the courtroom strategy lies the most unsettling question of all. Was Robinson driven purely by ideology, or was something much deeper pulling the strings? That's the mystery we'll explore in Section 4, because behind every headline, there's always the question of why. At the heart of every true crime case lies one haunting question: why? With Tyler Robinson, prosecutors insist the answer is ideology. They point to his note, his texts, his words about hate, and the need to act. They argue this was a political assassination, carefully chosen and coldly carried out. But Robinson's defense hints at another explanation, one rooted in mental health. They'll say his words show resignation, not rage, that the suicide prevention vest wasn't a courtroom spectacle, but a symbol of someone in deep psychological crisis, that this was less about calculated politics and more about a young man collapsing under invisible weight. So which version is the truth? The jury will have to decide. And that's not just a legal decision, it's a reflection of what society believes drives violence in moments like this. Is it ideology, illness, or some dark mixture of both? As of now, the trial is still in its early stages. Robinson's defense team is combing through mountains of evidence. Prosecutors are preparing to argue for the death penalty, determined to make Robinson an example. And every new hearing brings a fresh wave of headlines, reactions, and speculation. But while the legal system works slowly, the story moves quickly in the court of public opinion. Supporters of Kirk demand justice. Critics question how someone so young could reach such a point. And in between are millions of Americans left wondering, what does this case say about where we are and where we're heading? That's the bigger picture. This case isn't just about a single act of violence. It's about political division, the impact of online rhetoric, the fragility of mental health, and the dangerous intersections of all three. And that leaves you with the final question: what do you think? Was Tyler Robinson acting as a political assassin, convinced he was fighting hate with hate? Or was this the unraveling of a troubled young man whose spiral ended in tragedy? Let me know your thoughts down below. I'll be reading and responding to as many comments as I can. And if you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dive true crime stories, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Because this case is far from over, and the next chapter may reveal answers that change everything we think we know.